This is Real Learning with Real People. These conversations are with real people. They're unscripted and they're designed to pull tidbits of information from people who are grinding right now to get the most out of their lives. With minimum amounts of editing and maximum authenticity, we hope to provide lessons that anybody will find effective, relatable, and entertaining. We seek to have guests that provide learning that's based on their life experiences. Some are chosen because of their experience as high performers in sport, business, or education, and other guests have been chosen because they have meaningful lessons to teach, and I want to make sure they have the platform to share them with the world. The language in these videos is sometimes mature, as I'm always encouraging guests to just be themselves. This is all part of making sure that we do our best to give you content that is both authentic and effective, and that you truly feel like you can utilize the real learning and connect with these real people. The second guest this week on our show is 14-year-old music producer, yes, you heard me right, Jarom Su'a. You might think his introduction wouldn't be that long, but there's a lot that he has already accomplished. Jarom has produced multiple tracks in collaboration with other artists. He's met acclaimed producer Timbaland, built relationships in the music industry that are rock solid, and even created his own successful sock company, Su'a Socks. Obviously, his attitude towards learning and doing is exceptional, but he's already wise beyond his years, which is evident both in his work and his relationships with others. There's some audio glitch near the end of the episode as the signal jumps all the way from Florida to Canada, but there was nothing in the interview worth cutting out. By the way, the track for the show, yep, it's a Jarom Su'a original. Let's dive into this chat with Jarom. Hey, Su'a. Hey, Jarom, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. The sun is finally out here. When I did the interview with your dad, it was still snowing, so we've progressed here in Canada to some nice, more Florida-like weather.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So I always just dive right into some of the background questions and wanting to learn a little bit more about you and what makes you you. Now, you might have a little bit of a shorter background than many of my guests because you haven't had quite as much time to compile it, but tell me a little bit about your family makeup, your parents, your siblings, what life is like for you, that kind of thing.
So my family consists of 5 people. I have my mom and my dad and my 2 sisters. So my one sister, Maya, she's awesome. So she cooks, she loves to work out and run and do all that type of stuff. And then I have my other sister, Eliana, and she's an actor. And so she loves to act, and she's also a dancer, and she loves to sing and loves to do all that type of stuff. And then my mom, my mom's a fitness instructor. Also, she used to be a fitness instructor, but she helps out, helping us with our fitness at home too. And she's also she's really good with her health and just trying to keep us healthy and stuff. And yeah, she's awesome. And then my dad, he's a mental performance coach for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he just helps people get right in their minds and mentally strong and mentally tough.
Nice. And tell me a little bit about school. What's school like for you?
School, so since we're homeschooled, so right when we wake up, I get dressed, get everything done for the day, and then I get spiritually well, read my scriptures, pray. And then my mom, she takes us through a great workout every single morning just to get fit. And then we do school. So I do school for I get to try to get as many subjects as I can, usually about one to 3 subjects a day. And then right after I do school, I have piano practice. And so I go and I sit down with piano for about 30 minutes or so. And then right after piano, I go straight into music and then just start making beats.
Nice. So coming back to mom and dad, if you had to describe, first we'll do mom. If you had to describe mom in a word, what would that be?
I would describe my mom unstoppable. And then my dad, I would describe him as intelligent.
Awesome. Those are 2 awesome words. And so as we look at what your family does, it sounds like it's kind of going to be the Su'as take over the world thing here over the next 10, 15 years with what your siblings are doing, what your dad does. And you're all, at least the 2 of you I've met, you're super personable. You don't seem like uncomfortable talking to people and that kind of thing. And we all know those are huge assets in the world, being able to communicate with others effectively. why is that important to you to be able to talk to other people well? Or is it important to you? Maybe it's not even that important to you. It's just
Yeah, that's a great question. So I personally think that's super important, especially for me in the music industry, because when you're making music, you're always trying to work with other people, just trying to spread ideas, and you just want to be able to talk to people. Like before music, it's like you got to get to know the person like individually, and so that's why whenever you're just talking, I'm talking to artists on the phone, talking to producers on the phone, just carrying a conversation, just kind of being more like not almost all about the music, just more personal, getting more personal. I think that's super strong just to build connections.
nice, nice. And so was this always a strength of yours? Like as long as you can remember, have you been pretty good at just kind of reaching out and chatting with whoever?
Actually, okay, so when I was younger, I feel like I was like, I mean, I'm still kind of young, but like when I was younger, um, I felt like I was kind of on the shy side. But I feel like it was like fourth or fifth grade. I had a great teacher in fourth grade, and that's when we first started doing speech contests. And that's like I started just doing speech contests, and I just kept doing speeches and talking to people. And that was like my first time doing like public speaking. And yeah, I feel like right after fourth grade, I feel like the older I get, the more I kind of get out of my shell and just try
Yeah.
to be super, yeah,
Nice, nice.
super talkative, you know?
Well, I feel like it's gonna like I definitely don't know as many people in your industry as you do. Just because you've probably already spent exponentially more time in it than I ever will in my life. It's just not my field, right? So, but the people I do know, I don't know too many people that don't have a degree of that. I know a few that are a little bit more shy, and ironically, both of them are country music artists. But maybe they're just naturally a little bit more shy. But definitely in the hip hop world, like everybody I know in the hip hop world is pretty outgoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk sports for a second. We know that your dad works in athletics and works with athletes all the time. Are sports a part of your life? And if so, what does that look like?
So I used to play baseball when I was like younger.
Yeah.
But like I used to play. I loved it a lot because one thing when my dad was playing baseball, my grandpa was playing baseball. Like everybody I knew that was kind of the surrounding when I was younger, and so I started playing baseball, and then I fell in love with music, and I kind of put baseball aside. But then I also did football. I did baseball, football, and then I fell in love with soccer. So soccer is like my new favorite sport. And like whenever I have the chance, so every single day, if working out's a sport, I feel like that's kind of a sport. But like every single day, we're always getting a workout in. So I feel like being active, especially in these days, is like key, so that you're just trying to stay healthy all the time. Like we're a super like outdoorsy people. Like as a family, we're always trying to like get outside, hang out and stuff. Yeah, so sports is pretty big in our lives.
Yeah, and I think you probably and you can answer this, but it's not really a question, but I'm sure you have friends where music is either not a part of their life that much, or it's kind of just a outside part of their life, and sports is their priority. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure.
And do you, in your judgment, would you say that you get out of music what many other people get out of like competing in a sport? It's kind
Mm,
of a tough
that's
question.
that's a good one. I th- I think when it comes to when you're in a sport with a team, I think I can get the same principles because I've been in the sport and I kind of know, like on a team sport. But I feel like when there's a sports team, it's all about like working together. And then when artists and producers are working together, they're just trying to get, I don't know. I feel like you can get some of the same principles out of it, like
Yeah,
teamwork, team building, and just like, yeah. But yeah, I feel like you can get some of those kind of principles out of sports into the music.
totally. And I think the reason why I ask you the question is because a lot of times when people talk sport, they think about like winning and competing in sport, like doing it only in like a formal setting. But especially it sounds like now you participate in sport, you're still super active, you're still doing things outside and that kind of thing, but you're not necessarily pursuing that high level competition at the moment. You're only 14, so you still could.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool because so I'm 99% sure that there's nothing like this in America, but in Canada, and we're pretty proud of this. We got a few things we're pretty proud of in Canada. One of them is the idea of the fundamental movement skills and movement literacy or physical literacy. And essentially what that means is trying to make it so that you're active for your entire life. So maybe you enter sport as a competitive athlete, maybe you even become an elite athlete, but how do we keep people active and in sport all the way from when they're born to when they're elderly? So and we literally have to teach and kind of grow and really foster the concept in a lot of people, the idea of being active and healthy for life or after they're done competing in sport. But it sounds like you already kind of have that mindset where you're already like, no, this is just a part of my life. Like being active is important to me.
Yeah, just always trying to stay active, staying healthy.
Yeah, I like that. Where does that come from, do you think? I think the answer might be a little obvious, but I want to hear from you.
My mom, my mom was a fitness instructor, and she's a beast when it comes to working out and like just getting healthy. And she's like always been that way, even still to this day. And she
Yeah.
works us out, and we love it, obviously, but like it's awesome. So, and also my dad, because he's always in sports and all that type of stuff all the time. And both my parents played sports growing up. They're both on teams and stuff. And I feel like we kind of just inherited that, and it's not like something we're forced to do. It's something that we just like always try to do it just because we love it. It's like one of those things. It's like you just love to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now I want to pivot here a little bit because I didn't bring you on here just to talk about you being active and you playing sports. I brought you on here because you have already demonstrated, whether you know it or not, you demonstrate quite the ability to pick up new skills, and I think you're pretty aware of that. And I don't just mean skills in sport, like we've been talking about. I mean skills in general, because you're producing music, you're selling music. You've already literally, when you sold your first track, you sold 100% more music than I'll ever sell in my life in all likelihood. So I guess as we dive into that, when we dive into that creative kind of perspective, before we go all the way in there, because I think it's important to just touch on this, what does your spirituality play in your life? Why is that important to you?
God first, always. I feel like God, he's the reason he gives anybody talents. Like he's the one that his being able to give us the strength to be able to do anything, and he gives us the opportunity to do like any of the things we love to do. And so I think always like praying and giving thanks to him for the talents and the abilities that we have that he has given us is a huge key, because it's always God, then it goes family, then music, and that's like God first always.
That's awesome. And I think like I mentioned to you before we got on here that I interviewed Kian or Kid Cartel last week, and anybody who knows him or has listened to his stuff knows that all his stuff is heavily laced with different tributes and different I'm trying to find the word, different really kind of positive references, I guess, towards his spirituality. And in that interview we talked about the fact that I don't consider myself to be religious. I consider myself to be spiritual. I meditate, I do breath work and meditate, what I would say is religiously, and I really try and connect with having some faith in something. But for me, it's a little bit different, and I'm a big believer there's no right and wrong in that sense. But I also believe that everybody really needs some kind of structure, some kind of framework around faith and around having some kind of spirituality. And one of the things that I love that you just said was you have a very clear structure in terms of how things work for you, and you put that right there at the top, and I think that that's awesome. And then you've got your
Yeah.
family right there second, or maybe you might even be able to say like as a 1A, like real close, right up there with God. And then sliding right in next is music. And
Yeah.
knowing that and understanding that is probably why you're able to do what you can do it in the field. So let's talk music. If
Okay.
you're diving into creating something, what is your thought? Like, you sit down, you want to create a new track. What's your goal?
Okay. So when I first sit down, when I first sit down to make a new beat or a new track, is I'm always trying to be different than everybody else. Like that was the main thing, just to be different, because there's so many producers. It's almost like overly saturated. There's so many producers out there, and there's also kind of like now I'm noticing like a lot more kids and a lot more people that are younger trying to get into music. And so now I'm just like, okay, so what sets me apart from everybody else? And so I try to always, even when it comes to collaborating with certain people, making music with certain people, I'm just trying to find people that are different. Some people that, like, when they bring something different to the table rather than everything that you're always hearing on the radio or like in beats like on YouTube or stuff. And so the first thing I do is I just think of how can I be different in this new track? And if that means calling up Kian, because Kian, he's awesome. Like he's super different when it comes to rapping. Like he's always about God, which is awesome. And or it means calling up like awesome and unique producers like I just worked with one, Kai or Ashatune, and some other producers like that, like just super unique when it comes to that. And then right when I know where I'm trying to go with difference and uniqueness and stuff, then I just hop right in and just let it come.
Yeah, man. I think you do a pretty, in my super not expert opinion, I think you do a great job of making that come through in the music too. I think that one of the things that draws me, not just to talking to you, but to listening to your beats, to listen to some of the tracks that I've heard so far, is just the fact that I don't feel like I'm listening to a kid copy and paste something that he heard from somebody else. It's like I'm just listening to somebody who's producing something that I haven't heard before. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And when we talk, like, so you've dove in, like both feet all in. You obviously love music. You mentioned that. What was the initial like scary point? We often teach with our company about finding things that create pain or create fear and then attacking them. And I can imagine that you had one or two of those. What were those like for you?
So is it cool if I start off like the story how I started getting into music and then like kind of build it up to there?
Yeah, man, go.
So I remember I was 10 years old and I was like, okay, I want to start making music. And I found out about a producer named Timbaland. And I was so amazed. I was like, what the heck? Like, this guy's crazy. He's like super good. He's super unique. And so I was like, okay, I gotta look more into it. So I looked into his music, and I noticed all this like super new and different like styles that he's always creating. And I was like, okay, this guy's crazy. And so I went and I saw that he had a masterclass. So he was teaching other producers how to be good at making beats. And so I went and I asked my parents right when I saw, I was like, oh my gosh, can I get this masterclass? Can I do this masterclass? And so they're like, yes, of course. And so I took my first masterclass and I loved it. And so after I started taking a bunch of masterclasses, I was just taking his masterclasses, writing down notes, just trying to get better at my craft and almost kind of not really copying his style, but just taking in. That's why I like to be like super unique in my music, because he's super unique. And so fast forward about a year later, and so my sister, she's an actor. And so we were at this movie premiere because my sister, she's an actor, and she booked a role for the movie Hobbs and Shaw. And it's a spin-off of Fast and Furious. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were sitting in the stands and the movie's about to start. I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden I look to my left and I see Timbaland there. I was like, what the heck? And so I went and I told my parents, I was like, that's Timbaland, that's Timbaland. And so my heart was beating so much. And I walked up to him, told him I'm a music producer, and he's like, oh, that's awesome. And so he looked at my beats and he started playing them on the spot, like right there. And so I was like so nervous, like I was like biting my, okay, so I was so nervous. And so, and then we went back to the seat, and I was like, one of the greatest moments of my life, like meeting the person that had it all happen, like it all started from Timbaland, like listening to his music. So I was making beats a little bit more after that. I never stopped, but I kept making beats. And then one day, Timbaland, he reposted one of my beats, and I was so pumped. I was like, that's insane. And like he just gave me all these opportunities, like all these artists were asking for beats, and I was so grateful because like he kind of opened up the boundaries, opened up, like, so now more and more people are able to hear my beats. And so going back to your question, I kind of stopped. So when I make music, I'm trying to be as unique as possible. I'm now, but sorry, excuse me. So when I first started, I tried to fit in. I was trying to be like, trying to do the same thing that everybody else was doing, just because it was safe. Like I didn't want to kind of push it overboard because I didn't know like what the outcome would have been. And so I went and I posted I had a feeling that I needed to post like a super unique beat. I made it. I loved it. But I didn't feel like it would do well on Instagram. And I did it, and it did terribly. It didn't do good at all. And so I was kind of down. I was kind of upset. And then I realized I need to do it again. Like it's my music. I love the track. Doesn't mean that people didn't like it. I mean, it's my music. I'm just gonna do it again. So I posted not the same beat, but a different type of beat. It was almost in the same style, and it did very well. And that beat was the first beat that I sold. It was super unique, and that was the first beat that I sold. And it was like almost like a unique, like Timbaland type beat.
Yeah.
And after that, like I just kept honing in on just being unique. Don't even really care what other people think. Just like other trap producers think, just super different. Just be different, be unique.
Yeah, that's you should probably trademark that and start putting that on some t-shirts. Package them together with a couple beats and that kind of thing. Now it's funny, so like Timbaland was probably like his shock value albums were like that. Those were the ones that kind of got me into the entire style of music, like those.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like that was, I wasn't that into it. And then I think those came out in like early 2000s, like 2006, 2007, something like that. And I remember when they came out and the collaborations he was doing and stuff like that, they were different, they were unique. And I like that you talk about the fact that was, you played it safe first, and safe didn't really fly, and
Yeah.
it didn't really pan out like it hoped. I guess the question that brings up for me is did you play it safe because you didn't want that negative feedback or something like that, or was it another reason? What was that like?
I played it safe. So in the beginning, so when I first started making music, I noticed like all the beats on YouTube, they're almost kind of the same stuff. And I was like, but I saw their views and I saw their subscribers, and I was like, dang, I wonder if I do that type of beat, it'll get me there. Yeah. And so I just started doing, like, if you listen to hip hop or trap, they're always like the guitar flutes, like the dark melodies and stuff. And so that's what I was trying to go for, like almost every single beat. And I realized I was like, this is good, but like I know I wasn't going to where I wanted to go personally, because I was always about being unique. But when I first started doing music, it was like I was first starting off and I didn't really know how to do certain things. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know that other people are doing it, so that I won't stand out as much. But once I met Timbaland, and once I kept listening to his stuff and realizing that I can be much more than everybody else, then I just kept doing super different type of beats.
Yeah, it's that what you're talking about too, that transfers to so many parts of life, and in that Like if I do take a sport example, if we all go out and we start trying to recreate Steph Curry's jump shot right now, we are not going to beat Steph Curry. But if we go out and we stay true to ourselves, and I think it connects all the way back to when you said God, family, music. When we've got that solid foundation, those values, those things that we can really lean on and we can stay true to when we decide that we want to be true to something, all of a sudden we start carving our own path. And that's that.
Yeah.
I'm jealous because I wish I knew that when I was in my early teens. Because I think, I don't know, maybe I just learned that right now, thinking about it now that you're saying it. But it's a real asset, I guess I would say, to be able to have that foundation, so that when you decide I'm going to be unique, you know that you got something to lean on, and you got that God, family, and using that to guide your music is awesome. Do you approach kind of all aspects very similarly, in the sense that let's go into like an academic side. Like if you have a new subject in school that maybe makes you a little shady or a little nervous and you're not really that psyched about, do you dive in the same way, or is that a little bit different because maybe your passion doesn't sit in the same level?
I think I don't look at it the same way, to be honest, but I'm not like the guy that's like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready for school right now. Like, I'm not that type of kid. Like, I'm not about school, but I know it's important, and I know that I'm gonna have to but I know I'm gonna need to go to college just to expand my learning. But I feel like it'll take me a while to get used to if a new subject out of nowhere just pops up. I'm like, okay, another one. But I don't think I would look at it. I would try to. I know I would eventually get there. Yeah. But yeah, that was a good question.
Well, it's you're actually, again, you're doing it the way that's kind of backwards to how a lot of people do it, which is that many people are born and raised and they know the importance of school, and they're like, yeah, I'm all in on school because school is where I learn, right? School is for learning. And so we start to think that learning happens in school. And then as you become an adult, all of a sudden you kind of stop learning because you're done with school. So you're done with learning. But it seems to me from the outside looking in that your perspective is really like learning's happening everywhere. Like, I know it happens in school. We all know that.
Yeah.
But learning's happening everywhere. I learn on my own. I learn from my parents. I learn from my siblings. I learn from just, I don't know, random people like Timbaland who I get to meet and just have little pieces. People like Kian, like those people. It's like, it seems to me like you're learning outside of the school setting. You already get that. You already know that's a place to learn. And now you're like, I know I'm also going to learn some stuff in school too. And I know that it's important, but I also know that I can learn anywhere I go. I don't need to be in a certain four walls.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So I think in a minute here, I want to dive into you kind of watching and listen. It's going to be more listening, especially for the podcast version, but just experiencing a little bit of what your process looks like and how things work for you when you're creating. Because one of the things, I never thought of myself as a creative person, and I'm starting to realize that I'm not saying that I'm a good creative person, but I mean, I think that's kind of how my mind works, is that I think about things the way I describe it is that the more creative you are, the more colors you see in the world. And I don't mean like literal colors necessarily.
Yeah.
Just have a whole full spectrum. Like all of a sudden you look at a tree and you're like, man, if that tree blooms, it's going to look really nice. But also if we cut that tree down, we could carve that up into something that would look really good too. And you start to see things in a bunch of different ways. So is that kind of similar to maybe how you see the world? Like you just see a bunch of possibility, that kind of thing?
I personally, I'm always thinking like nonstop. Like I don't know. I think I was always born with that. So when I was younger, obviously, but like when I was younger, I was really into like entrepreneurship. And so basically when I was in school, I would get balloons and I would put sand in them and put water in them, tie them up, and then I would sell them for like $5 at school to say they're stress balls. Like I would do little things like that, like all over school. And teachers kind of got tired of it, not gonna lie. But like, and I would sell like erasers, I would sell pencils. I would just start. Actually, I remember. So I would go in the cafeteria, and my friend would like bring me a bunch of these like raisin packs, and I would start selling them at school. And I hid them in my desk, and I started selling. So like I was always like had that entrepreneurial mindset. Like everywhere I went, I was like, I can make money there. I can make money there. But yeah, like I was just nonstop about like entrepreneurship. I even started like a sock company. I don't know if you knew that, but I made a sock company called Su'a socks, and I legit like had a manufacturer make socks for me, and I would just like start selling them at school. It was so cool. But I kind of stopped that, and I kind of took that mindset into music, and also just like in my daily life, I'm always thinking like everywhere. I'm always thinking about what can I create. What am I gonna do? Or just like I'm just always, my mind's always turning. Like even when I feel like even when I'm sleeping, like I always have like dreams of like beats that I would make, and I would come after the day's almost over, and I would go and I'd make the beat, and then I'd like post it. But it's just like I'm always thinking and being just trying to be creative.
That's awesome. I definitely I feel very similar. I obviously I think the creative mind kind of works in different ways. I read and I write and I create a different type of content than you do, and it's that's really where my mind goes. Like I've realized that if I want to sleep well, I have to have a notebook near the bed, so that if something pops in, I get it out, I put it down on the paper, and then I know I'm not going to forget it. I don't stress about not remembering it for the next day. And that's become a huge part of my life. It changed the whole way that I slept, or if I like a book, if I'm reading a book and I'm into it, I just need to be into it until I pass out, like fall asleep in the middle of reading it, or I finish it. Because if I tell myself like, I got to put the book down, I got to go, I got to be up early, then I just don't sleep anyway, because my mind's thinking about what's coming up in the book, and I'm making up my own story about what's coming.
That's crazy.
And I think that's awesome. I think that mindset, that possibility based or that opportunity based mindset is really cool. Last question or last topic, I guess, before we dive right into one of your beats and creating a little bit on here, is you've made it very clear that taking risks is something that I would say that we're always learning to do it more, but I think that you put actually a pretty high value on taking risks, and you're not afraid to fail. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I know when, let's say, a beat does flop, or maybe a song with an artist does flop, or like a collaboration or something, I know that I will be able to take lessons out of what just happened. So let's say it's a beat, and I was like thinking about it the whole day, and I come to the drawing board and I'm about to make it, and I'm like, okay, like this is terrible. And so, but I know like, okay, what would I do better? What change? Eventually, whenever beats go wrong, I feel like, so I'm usually the type of person that's like looking forward to music the whole day, doing school, looking forward to it. And then I go and start making a beat, and then like the idea I had in my head never really works out. And so I'm like, oh dang, that kind of stinks. And so I will go always look for inspiration. I will look at my other beats and be like, okay, let's see what I'm like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And then it always happens like right when it's like nighttime, like after like 5 hours of fast, it's always like right when I'm about to finish, I make a really good beat. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm always like posting at night. But like, yeah, so I feel like you can always take something good out of whatever comes out bad.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, you're doing it backwards, which is exactly how it should be done, because backwards in this context really just means the masses figure this out when they're too old to be able to do anything with it, and you've figured it out now, and you're finding ways to access your passions and talent, which I think is pretty damn cool. So let's dive right in here. I want to hear a little bit. I want to just kind of hear you create a little bit for us.
Okay, so here, let me turn up the stuff. And okay, so basically I was talking to you about like when it comes to making music, I was trying to find collaborating. I was trying to find people that are almost kind of like-minded and super unique. And so that's like the first people that I'll hit up first. And so there's this one really talented producer, and his name is Kai. And he sent me some loops, and so I'm gonna make a beat with it. So this is what the sample sounds like. Here, let's play this. Oh shoot, it's not even connected. Hold up. Here we go. And so it's like it's super bouncy, super all over the place. So that's like you don't normally hear that. You hear it in a couple of artists' music, but it's just almost like super different. It goes through the headphones differently also. And so the first thing that I always think of when it comes to the intro, I try to find almost like the juiciest, the thickest part of the sample, which has all the elements in it. And that's how I start off making the intro. So I'll go and I'll get that part and I'll put it in the intro just so it's like, oh, it's super full, and then it drops into the beat. So this is the fullest part of the beat. Let me play it for you. Here we go. And so that's the fullest. And then whenever it's about to drop, I always add a bunch of reverb, so it's like super open. And then I drop it into like the most simplest part of the beat, which you guys have heard. And then, yeah, I'll add our tags into it too. So let's play it. Okay. Hi, I'm Kai. So I'm gonna start making the drums. I have some of them prepared. So I'm just gonna play it for you, just like what the drums sound like. So I don't know where I took it from. I think it's like, I don't know. I'm just like always about the drums is like one of the most important parts of the beat because it just carries the beat on. And so this is what it starts. It starts off with the clap. There you go. And then let's go some hi-hats. And then I always add like this little percussion in my beats just to keep it super bouncy, super upgoing, upbeat. Here we go. And then we're gonna add the bass. And I'm super heavy bass driven. Like I love when you listen to beats in the car and like the drums are like hitting super hard. It's like shaking the whole car. Yeah. It's like that's me. And so I always try to add that into my beats. And this is what it sounds like. Okay, so I'll play the full little loop for you guys. Here we go. Hi, I'm Kai. That's my thought process of that beat.
Man, that's awesome. It's it's good when it can come through even on here, like through headphones and through internet, and it still got me kind of moving around.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
No, I think it's really cool. I think one of the coolest things about that is like you don't have textbook, like literal textbook knowledge of what this is. Like it's not like you've gone to university or you've gone and taken like how to create beats 101 at at Florida State or wherever that course would possibly be. But it's It's literally, I'm guessing that a lot of this was trial and error for you.
Yeah, so actually when I first started, YouTube was like the number one thing that helped me get like to know like my software.
Yeah.
And so YouTube was one of them. And also like every single day I dedicate, like, so I do music Mondays through Saturdays, and every single day I'm doing music, I always dedicate like 1 to 2 hours of just learning. So I'll go on master classes and I'll just take notes on what these other producers have done that have gotten big. Or I'll go on Producer Grind 2.0, like it's a YouTube channel, and they interview like all these producers and stuff, and like they're always dropping like knowledge bombs and gems all the time. And so I'm always trying to like pick up and learn from what they're doing. And then once I learn from what they're doing, then I go right into start making a beat. And just, yeah, I'm always trying to learn, trying to expand my knowledge all the time.
That's awesome. I love, again, kind of building on what I was talking about before too. There's something that happens when people leave their formal schooling, where if you were to say to most 40-year-olds that you dedicate a couple hours a day, 6 days a week to just learning, they would be like, well, what, like that would not make any sense to them. and that's bad. Like that's exactly why I created this company, is because we work a lot with schools and stuff like that, but I created a company because so many adults need more of what you've figured out now. They've just really disconnected from that learning side. And you do it through the venue of music, and you also happen to be good at it. But the fact that it can apply to anything, like the same attitude that you have about just dedicate some time to learning, man. Like that's two questions that we ask people all the time is, what was the last thing you gave up learning? Why did you give that thing up? And then now I need to add in a third question, the Su'a question, I guess. And it's gotta be like, how much time are you dedicating each day to learning, if any?
Yeah.
Because
like I feel like if you want to be good at something, you always just have to keep hacking at the craft. Like you just got to keep trying to perfect it. I know you're never gonna get perfect. I mean, nobody's perfect, but like just keep going at it. Just keep hacking at it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the way that I love the idea of mastery, and one of the people that is one of my inspirations, I guess, and one of the people that I really look up to is a friend of your dad, Dr. Michael Gervais, and one of the things he talks about mastery all the time, and the idea that mastery is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's so interesting to me because the people who get it, and you're one of those people, regardless of where they're at, what industry they're in, when you get it, you know that you're always trying to get better in order to achieve something that isn't a set end point. You're just trying to achieve continuing to get better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I think I know that's gonna serve you well. Not only does the science show it, but it's already serving you well these days. So real quick, just as we kind of wrap up here, I want to make sure that we're connecting people back to your stuff. So where can people follow you, but where can people buy or get some of your stuff too?
So you guys can follow me at Jarom Su'a. So Instagram is Jarom Su'a, at Jarom Su'a. It's just like one word. There's no underscores or anything. And then my BeatStars, if you go on beatstars.com and you type in Jarom Su'a with an apostrophe and my last name SU', it'll pop up. It's like a yellow profile photo, and you can just like buy any of the beats there. My beats are pretty cheap, and anybody can pretty much buy them right there off that site. And if you guys want to collaborate with me, if there are any music producers out there, you can just email me, jaromsu'a@gmail.com. No anything, just Jarom Su'a, JAROMSUA@gmail.com. And yeah, that's where you guys can find my stuff.
Cool. And one last question. I ask this question to everybody, and this one I like to see what you can kind of pull out of your head on the spot. So if you were to give people advice about learning anything, you've already done a bunch of that and just what we've been talking about, but in just like a line or two, if you were to advise anybody on how to learn things or get better at stuff, what would that be?
If you want to get better at something, keep practicing, just nonstop.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm hoping that when people start watching this and listening to this, that attitude that they might have of like, oh, I don't need to practice anymore, I don't need to learn anymore, they might check themselves a little bit, because they'll be like, well, this this 14-year-old kid's already just absolutely crushing me in life, and I'm 30 years older than him. So I hope that they heed your advice, and I hope that they take some of the lessons that you gave today. And I really appreciate you coming on. I know this is your first time doing something like this, and I'm sure it's going to be far from your last, but I'm honored to be the first person to do it with you first. And
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, totally. And we're gonna, as soon as I stop this recording, I'm gonna want to hit you up and talk to you about beat for the show, because I need something that's not a general Camtasia beat to start ripping the show in and out.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, man. We'll talk again soon.
All right, thank you.
Make sure you subscribe wherever you get podcasts or to this YouTube channel to hear our weekly episodes.